Hi, this is the first of two videos on the teaching of Oracy. Now, the first video you're about to watch explains how Helen, Deputy Head of an independent junior school department, implemented the teaching of Oracy skills across their curriculum. In the next video on NAPE's YouTube site, I was lucky enough to talk to Professor Neil Mercer. Now, he's the director of Oracy Cambridge at the University of Cambridge.
I was not very confident when it came to speaking in front of others. The Oracy lessons have helped me express myself more, whether in a class discussion or making a presentation. I think it is a good way to encourage children who are shy or lack confidence.
I'm passionate about the environment, and the Oracy skills I have learned at Hesketh House have really helped me to express my ideas and opinions clearly. I believe that discussion, debate and sharing of ideas help us to develop our understanding of the world around us.
Helen, welcome to the NAPE YouTube site for today. And today we're going to be talking about Oracy. Now, Helen, I know that you've done an awful lot of work with your school on Oracy and indeed done a research paper, which we're going to sort of concentrate on as well. But tell me, let's start from the beginning. How did it all start and where are you coming from on this?
Well, I'm deputy head of a junior school, which is part of an independent school. We teach children from 0 to 18 years, part of a primary division, and I've been teaching over 30 years, mostly in independent schools, some experience in state schools. And the Oracy came from a hunch based on observations over several years, really. In English lessons, I noticed a real decline in the breadth of pupils' vocabulary, in their ability to articulate their thoughts and their feelings. And I felt that we really need to focus on our Oracy within the classroom. I felt our classwork had become far too much book focused. We were far too involved in trying to race through the curriculum, and not enough attention was being spent on children's development of Oracy skills, their discussion, their ability to present ideas, their ability to question. So it sort of came from there initially. Conversations in the staff room, conversations with other professionals, and then I started to look deeper into the research behind the Oracy focus and found there was a lot of research out there, and I was keen to sort of see where that took me, dig deeper into the research, find out a little bit more for myself.
Yes, I mean, that's the normal trend of events in the school. You spot a weakness, maybe it's to do with looking at standards and figures, facts and figures.
Absolutely. I mean, Paul Warwick obviously had seen the need to develop learners' 21st century skills. You know, he realised that critical thinking, collaboration were going to be key to our learners in 21st century workplace. And all his research and research at the Oracy Cambridge Institute was where I started, really. They were basically saying that Oracy is pivotal to pupils' development, particularly when coming from a poorer background. And that evidence was very compelling when I started to look into it in more detail. But for me, in my role in an independent school, it was very much thinking about how was that relevant to me, to us in our school. We're a selective school. Our children achieve highly generally, and they're usually quite confident pupils, and there's a sort of casual assumption that their Oracy skills will be very high and well honed already. But what I found was that those were the skills that I found were decreasing year on year. So in English lessons, when I was teaching comprehension, I found the breadth of vocabulary was diminishing. I felt the shy children, the quiet children in the classroom were very content to let the more confident children contribute. And I was looking at ways that we could integrate Oracy in our setting, where it could have the highest impact. And I truly believe that it would have a big impact on our pupils' development.
Yeah, I think that's right. I mean, back burner sort of springs in my mind, because certainly post-Plowden and pre-national curriculum group work, so tables were grouped together to encourage discussion and Oracy, if you like, was the norm. But unfortunately, post-national curriculum, We now see, certainly as a governor I've seen this, rows of seats facing the board, facing the teacher, with perhaps not so much or not so many opportunities for children to talk about whatever subject needs to be discussed. Would you say so?
Absolutely, and I think this is what we found. You know, we decided to look at the Oracy skill across the curriculum because we felt that we wanted to advance pupil knowledge, we wanted to develop confidence, we wanted to give our pupils skills for life. So we were looking at it across the whole range of subjects, and group work and collaboration became very much a focal point for our planning of sequences of lessons, for example. Through group work and collaboration, we were wanting to encourage pupils to ask questions. We very much wanted to use the Voice 21 talk roles. We wanted pupils to be able to start a discussion, to be able to build on one another's ideas, to be able to question, to be able to summarise, and really through those discussion roles they will build knowledge, and that's something we very much found as the project progressed.
Now, the impetus for all of this came from a 3-day course, is that right?
Yeah, so after my initial sort of delving into the research, into the Oracy Cambridge research and having a look at that myself, I then saw that there was some very good training out there. Voice 21 were running some CPD, they were coming to Manchester, it was perfect for me. And they ran a series of 3 days across an academic year, which was absolutely perfectly formatted because you could go for the day, you met other professionals, you got the opportunity to talk and share ideas. And they obviously gave us ideas to try out in our first session. We could go back to our own classrooms and we could try those ideas out with our pupils and see what worked for us, what didn't work so well. And over the course of the three days, we gleaned so much knowledge, and by the end of the 3 days I was ready then to think about how I was going to instill this. It's sort of set this project in motion, if you like.
That's right. You've been on this 3-day course, and it's now a question of trying to persuade your senior management team and the staff about the value of teaching Oracy actively in the school. How did you do it?
So to persuade the senior management team was already something that I'd managed to do because they allowed me to go on the course and they could see the positives, the benefits of that. Persuading the staff was going to be probably more of the challenge and something that I was going to have to work at. So I devised a 3-day CPD plan, again, very similar to the Voice 21 model, that would sort of span the course of an academic year. And I really wanted to get across to our teaching staff the fact that we spend so much time on reading and writing skills, but very little time on developing their verbal and communication skills, which actually are absolutely key to impacting on their reading and writing skills. So that was where I started from. And I did wonder whether all our staff would see the value of an Oracy focused curriculum. I wondered whether they would embrace this initiative. I wondered whether our parents would be supportive, for example. And I did wonder what the tangible benefits would be to our pupils. So I devised a series of CPD days, very similar to the Voice 21, where we took it very slowly. We started with looking at the research behind the initiative. I found very quickly that the staff were on board because they could see very clearly that the research was what they were experiencing in the classroom, that the standards in Oracy and in a pupil's ability to discuss ideas and articulate thoughts and feelings was actually on the decline. So it was very easy actually to run with that initial idea that Oracy should be a focus in our school. And it was clear from the discussions during the CPD sessions that our staff really did understand the imperative of developing communication skills, and they were starting to see the benefits immediately. So in the first session, we looked at lots of Oracy games, things that they could use as lesson starters. The staff then went away and tried some of those in their own teaching. Then in the second session, they brought those ideas back. We really did give staff time and space to see if things worked, and that, I think that was very important. There was no pressure really. Try things, If they work, that's great. If they don't, then come back and tell us why they didn't work. Let's share what's good practice.
Clearly, in some ways, we do have things backwards. We are teaching reading and writing before honing oracy skills of children. And okay, it might have been the national curriculum, but it almost seems to be buried in terms of assessment or anything else. But can I just share the oracy skills framework and glossary with the viewers, so you can take us through it, because it will sort of start to make sense to everybody what indeed we're talking about. So here we go. Okay, can you see that all right, Helen?
I can see that, thank you. So that is very much where we started from. That was our starting point. And I think the 4 strands of the glossary, the framework, are very well proportioned. So the physical is obviously very, very important in encouraging our pupils to speak clearly with tonal variety, to project their voices, to use good body language, gesture. And that very much came through in our performance poetry, for example, or performances in concerts around school. We used our Year 6 ambassadors as tour guides for the school. So very much that was becoming part and parcel of us encouraging children to take on these roles within school. The linguistic, we very much already were using a lot of that in our written English work. And what we wanted to do was try and transfer the written skills into the oral skills, which is almost back to front really. But we wanted to develop and extend vocabulary in English, and we wanted to also encourage our pupils to use those rhetorical techniques such as humour and metaphor in their language. The social and emotional one was very easy because group work was something we were all focusing in on. So we were using a lot of different group strategies within our lessons. We were using the Voice 21 protocols, how to listen carefully, how to respond appropriately, using audience awareness. So all the strands of the Oracy framework were very much part and parcel of our initial trials of Oracy within our classroom.
Well, that's very, very helpful. I'm sure it's helpful to those watching this as well. Right, I'll just stop that and we'll go back to where we are. And obviously with COVID had an impact on teaching children as well, and on their home life. And you've mentioned that in the article, and I've put the link in the description below this video for those who are interested to read the entire article, called Oracy for All, One School's Approach to Integrating Oracy Across the Curriculum. So can you mention briefly some of these sort of curriculum elements, history, science? How did that work in terms of Oracy, the sort of nuts and bolts of it all?
Well, as a starting point, we introduced these HESCD habits, capabilities, challenge, collaboration, curiosity, creativity. We wanted to encourage our children to ask questions, be creative in their use of language, work together well, embrace challenge and debate and discussion. And as you say, we looked at different ways to integrate Oracy into our teaching and learning of different subjects across the curriculum. So if I started with looking at how we used it in English, for example, we spend a lot more time talking around texts, looking at talking about vocabulary within a text, because I think all of us have found the decline in vocabulary, breadth of vocabulary has been quite sharp in recent years. Obviously, in terms of performance, poetry, reading out loud, that was also key in English. But I think most of us had a sense of Oracy within the English curriculum. It was in the other curriculum areas where we found we wanted to try and integrate it more. So in mathematics, for example, we used Oracy strategies to develop understanding, problem solving and reasoning skills through a lot more collaboration, group work, questioning. And we taught Oracy skills explicitly in mathematics over the course of the year, and that very much resulted in our girls being better able to communicate ideas in maths. In science, again, questioning became very important, group work. We experimented with different talk group formations and focused on building scientific vocabulary into lessons. We very much wanted to ensure that asking questions was key. We wanted our pupils to take time to discuss, question, evaluate concepts in science. We used a lot of paired and group discussions in our science lessons. We used quite a lot of the group ideas from the Voice 21. They talk about nests, pairs, circles, onions, all their different ways of grouping pupils. And we did notice a big improvement after a few sessions with our pupils in their ability to communicate and listen to other pupils.
Yeah, if I could just stop you a minute, because you talked about a key was to encourage children to talk. Now, of course, some children are quite reticent about talking at all and let others do the talking for them. Did you develop strategies to get those children who find it difficult to talk, who can talk at home, for instance, they don't have any physical disabilities per se? How did you manage to encourage them to talk?
Well, we very much used a lot of the resources out there from the British Council, Voice 21, the Talk for Oracy, the sentence stems, so that our pupils very much like the sentence stems, little ways that they could start something. Often once they'd started to speak, they were fine. It was that initial contribution that our quieter pupils found quite difficult. So the sentence stems were good. We also found the Voice 21 discussion roles very good. So we would give, they have these cards. Can you start a discussion?
Right.
Can you build on an argument? Can you question? Can you summarise? So we very much use those talk roles quite systematically in the initial stages to sort of build confidence with the children and to get them used to using the different roles as well. So they didn't just become good at starting the discussion, but they they then would be adept at asking questions or building on arguments too. So we very much use those protocols to start.
Well, that's great. I mean, did the parents notice a difference when they got home at night?
I think the parents very much noticed a difference when we were doing a lot of online learning. So a lot of our parents would be at home and listening to our teaching and listening to their children engage with us. And I think they started to notice the impact of the Oracy work we started pre-lockdown. They started to notice the benefits then. And we did quite a lot of research in asking our parents for feedback on the Oracy project. And that was very clear through the feedback that we got from our parents. They had noticed a difference in their daughter's ability to contribute to discussions. During our remote learning, we very much placed a focus on Oracy. So we wanted our pupils to devise quizzes. We wanted them to make up little discussions. We did these Ignite talks, which were very much from the Voice 21 CPD, where they had to produce these 3-minute talks on something that interested them.
You also thinking about parents from the moment, and kids get homework. Were they given Oracy homework to do what you've just described? 3 minutes talk about something.
Absolutely, yes. And we actually found our pupils thrived with those sort of tasks because obviously you could link those to questions that were crucial to them: global warming, ecological issues, something that really ignited their interest, sparked an interest. And I think, we've got a lot of evidence on our Twitter feed now of those sort of little talks, those broadcasts, those podcasts, those keynote little speeches that they've made. Sometimes it might be linked to a humanities topic, might be something to do with World War II, might be something to do with geography, but something that would really ignite interest. We found the pupils really engaged with that. And through that, the parents did too. We actually had some of our parents dressing up as Shackleton, and the pupils would be interviewing their own parents and trying to involve them in the learning too. So it became very much a
family affair.
A whole family affair, yeah.
That's great. Okay, I mean, you've got lots of quotes from parents, and I'll include them in the bottom of the screen. So I'll use those if that's all right with you, just
Absolutely,
to show how powerful the process was in teaching Oracy, which is great. And English, history, music, science, you've even got PSHEE down here as well in developing those Oracy skills, which is great. And you got such positive feedback from parents, which is great to see. And of course, that is one method of assessment, isn't it? How the lessons learnt at school been noticed at home is good one point of assessment. How else did you measure how the standards, because you noticed there was a drop in standards of Oracy before you started the project, how did you measure, or how did you find out whether it was working or not?
Well, I think we took our staff's feedback from their own observations in lessons. So in staff meetings, we would gather feedback from staff, and it was very much positive across every area of the curriculum. Those PDFs you've talked about, where we've displayed how the Oracy journey has evolved through English, humanities, science, those sorts of things. The subject coordinators' evidence there is very compelling. You know, they can see clearly that the pupils have become more confident, they've been more willing to take on different roles, they've definitely grown vocabulary skills, all of those things that we initially set out to achieve, we think we did. And particularly, I think we noticed that the quiet child that you referred to earlier is a child that we have noticed has very much been drawn into the learning more effectively, and they have gained so much from this project within our school.
So that'd be a point of assessment, which is absolutely terrific. Helen, is there anything else you wanted to add before we stop for today?
No, not at all. I've very much enjoyed talking to you. It's been lovely. Thank you.
Well, that's great. Anyway, goodbye for now, and thank you very much for joining us. And you never know, we'll be talking about that project in the future.
Lovely to see you, Mike. Thank you.